Hi everyone, and welcome to the Interlinga Freight Management System tutorial, where I will be covering everything from collection all the way through to delivering cargo using the system. Now, first off, in this tutorial, the example I'm going to use is if you are delivering cargo from Johannesburg to Windhoek. So you have a distribution center in Johannesburg, and you have a distribution center in Windhoek in Namibia. And we want to cover collecting the cargo, receiving it at the distribution center in Johannesburg, placing the cargo onto a transfer manifest to Namibia, getting that cargo to Namibia, and then receiving it there, placing it onto a delivery manifest again, and then delivering the cargo to the delivery location. Okay, so let's get started. In Johannesburg, we would have the operations supervisor and the administration clerk. Now, if the client wants us to collect the cargo, he or she would contact the administration clerk, and the administration clerk will then capture the collection details onto the system. So the collection address, the delivery address, what cargo it is, on what account it is, all those information that you would normally find on a weighbill, as much information as possible. The administration clerk can then capture on the system and then save that weighbill to create a collection request. The system weighbill will now be in a quoted state. Next up, the operations supervisor will be able to open up IFMS and review the pending collections on a specific day to see what collections need to be made. He or she can then create a collection manifest, verify that, and contact the driver to make sure that the collection is made. The weighbill in the system will then be in a collection state. The driver will then go and collect the cargo from the collection point, and the cargo will then be offloaded at the Johannesburg distribution center using the collection manifest. So it's very important that all the collections made is the same as everything that's on the collection manifest. So you can essentially use the collection manifest to make sure that you didn't miss any collections or that any items didn't maybe go. Okay, so next up, the cargo is weighed and measured. The weightbills are amended, so the dimensions and weight is written on the weightbills, and the weightbills and the manifest is handed to admin for capturing. The weightbills are captured and verified and received by an administration clerk, and the weightbills are filed into induction trays. Now, the way the induction trays work is there are induction trays and ready trays. I'll talk about it a bit later. But the idea is that you physically file the weightbills into a tray marked induction with the particular route where that cargo is heading next. So in this case, the cargo will be filed, the weightbills will be filed into a tray marked induction, Johannesburg to Windhoek. Now, in the warehouse, that will be the same bay where the cargo will be physically stored. So in your warehouse, you would usually have your different routes for where you would load cargo out onto, or where you would store the cargo. So the idea is to have the location where the cargo is stored somehow relate to the location, the physical location where the weightbills are stored. So in this case, we're placing the weightbills into the induction trays because they're not ready to be loaded out yet. We haven't done the cross-border documentation yet. We have to wait for that to be completed before we can load that cargo out to Windhoek. So the weightbills are stored into induction trays. And on the system, the weightbill will then be on an on-floor state. Next up, an admin clerk would collect the weightbills from the induction bays, complete the cross-border or some other administrative requirements, place the weightbills into the ready trays to essentially indicate physically that the cross-border documentation is completed, and then move the labels on the system to ready base. So not only is it simpler to keep track of what documentation has been processed and what documentation has not yet been processed, but on the system is also aware of what has been done, what has not been done, what can be loaded out, and what cannot. So the next step would be that the operations clerk can then go onto the floor status screen and filter according to what is ready to be loaded. And from that, they can create the packing list. So the operations supervisor can see what documentation has been completed, what can he load out to Windhoek, and from that, they can create a packing list to load the vehicle. From that, the trucks are then loaded using that packing list. Next up, that packing list, the signed packing list. So if they load the car, if the pickers load the cargo onto the vehicle, essentially what they would do is, as they load the cargo, as they check the cargo onto the truck, they would tick on the packing list what cargo has been loaded and what cargo could not be loaded because of damage or shortage or some other reason. So the packing list keeps track of what is physically really on the truck and what could not be loaded. The transfer manifest is created from the signed packing list. And this ensures that only cargo that was physically really loaded actually goes onto the transfer manifest. Documents are collected from admin, so the labels, the driver then collects the labels with the manifest from the admin clerk, and then the truck can depart to Namibia. Now, depending on how your company's standard operating procedures, either the driver would collect the documents themselves, or the operations supervisor would collect the documents from admin and then brief the driver before departing for a delivery or for a transfer. So the system, the label on the system would now be in a transfer state. Now we're in Namibia, and the truck has arrived in Windhoek, and the truck is offloaded using the transfer manifest. Again, as they offload the truck, the pickers physically tick off on the transfer manifest the cargo that they've offloaded, and they check for damage, they check for missing items, and they record that information on the transfer manifest. In Windhoek, the label receipt is then done by an admin clerk using that signed transfer manifest, again ensuring that only cargo that was actually physically received is received onto the floor. And again, the labels are then filed into an induction tray, because again, there is some administrative process that needs to be completed before we can load the labels out onto a delivery. So from this point on forward, the process basically repeats. The system is now on an on-floor state in Windhoek. An administration clerk collects the labels and the documentation from the induction trays, completes a pre-scan or some other administrative requirements, places the labels and the documentation into ready trays, and then moves the labels on the system to ready bays. The operations supervisor can then create, again, the packing list from the floor status screen for a delivery. And those packing lists are again used to load the vehicle. The delivery manifest is created from the packing list, again, by an administrative clerk. The documents are collected from administration, again, either by the driver or by the operations supervisor, and the vehicle departs for delivery. The system label is then on an on-delivery state, and when the delivery has been made and the vehicle returns with PODs, an administrative clerk can then record the signatures from the delivery manifest and places the PODs and their supporting documents into a delivered tray. And that basically covers everything from collection to delivery. After this, there is a segment for accounts where we cover the PODs, capturing of the PODs, invoicing and such, but we'll cover that in a later video.